Welcome back to another episode of Hail Yes, a Michigan football and basketball podcast by the Detroit Free Press. I am Andrew Burkle, of course, joined by our beat writer, Tony Garcia. Tony, we had a early fall with the bad weather, but it's been beautiful these last few days, huh, man? It feels like SEC football around here, good weather and football.
Perfect. Yeah, no, and I think the one weekend where things were kind of questionable, sounds like the weather wasn't great up here. I was down in Oklahoma and it was 75 and sunny. So I've been riding the 75 and sunny wave for like 3 weeks now. Would like to sort of bottle it, extrapolate it over the rest of the year, but we all know what's coming. So that's why we're enjoying it now.
Absolutely. I played golf this week, so I can't complain. So we got a great show for you guys. We're going to talk a little bit about the Central Michigan game. Obviously, you saw what happened there. There's no reason to go too far into the X's and O's, but there were some takeaways. And we want to get to some overreactions, some proper reactions, or underreactions. So that's going to be a fun segment we'll get to in a little bit. Then we're going to, of course, preview Nebraska, a huge game for Michigan. Big Ten opener. Of course, Sharon Moore still serving game 2 of his suspension. So we'll talk about that. And then last but not least, we'll have our picks as well. So a loaded show. And we might as well just get right into the Central Michigan game here, Tony. 63-3, just an annihilation, really. And the kind of blowout win that Michigan hasn't been having really since Jim Harbaugh left, right? It was outside of the Northwestern game.
Yeah, it was the largest home victory largest victory, I should say, since the program beat Rutgers 78-0 in that infamous game in 2016. That was the most lopsided victory I have covered. I believe there was like a 59-3 win, and 63-3, my math tells me, is a little bit larger. So, but I mean, it's two things, right? On the one hand, there's nothing else you could have asked for, right? Offense scored on just about every possession, clean game from really most of the phases there. I think Zavada did miss one field goal, so that was really the only issue. Defense suffocating. So they allowed a 114 play, 83-yard drive. Other than that, I think Central had 60 yards on the day. So it was one possession. And other than that, nothing to see here. And then the offense is obviously the story of the day. And I don't want to dislocate my shoulder patting both of us on the back, but I guess even a broken clock is right twice a day. Isn't that what they say? And we were talking about how this would be a spot for Bryce Underwood to use his legs and really sort of open up the offense. And sure enough, 9 carries, team high 114 yards, 2 touchdowns. And I mean, those are just massive numbers for any week. First quarterback to run for 100 plus in a game for Michigan since Devin Gardner in 2013. That's a long time. And I mean, that's big for any game, but especially given the fact that he had not been allowed essentially to run the ball leading up to it. It was just such a hard right turn and deviation of game plan. That was well done by them. But when you say all of that, you do have to keep in mind this is Central Michigan, right? This is a team that is overwhelmed in 22 out of 22 spots on the football field. There's not a single player on Central Michigan, I would argue, that would be on Michigan's 2D, like who would even see rotational time. Like Michigan's true freshmen are better than Central Michigan starters. And so everything needs to be taken with a grain of salt, but that's what non-conference games are. That's what bye games are. And so you don't apologize for it. You use it as an opportunity to run Bryce, to see these different things, how it can open up the offense. True freshman Jaden Sanders starting at cornerback. You can have a guy like TJ Guy, who is a staple on the defensive line, not take a snap and be fine. Just keep the train rolling. They said that he will be very much part of the game plan this week against Nebraska. And so nothing to see there. But it was just an opportunity for lots of guys. I mean, Nick Marsh got in the end zone for the first time. Jordan Marshall got in the end zone for the first time. Bryson Kudzall.
Andrew Marsh, right?
I said Nick Marsh. Thank you. Yes, Andrew Marsh. Yeah, I'm sure that'll go over really well. Yeah, Andrew Marsh. Thank you. Andrew Marsh and Jasper Parker as well, right? And so, not to mention Bryce Underwood. So 5 different players finding the end zone with their legs for the first time in one game. Just good vibes all around. Doing it without Chiron on the sideline. Nothing went off. Everything went off without a hitch in that regard. So all's well that ends well. And no injuries, right? No major injuries sustained in that game. That's the last piece of when you're playing a team that you want to just pummel. Just make sure everybody gets out of there in good standing. And it didn't seem that they lost anybody new.
You couldn't have segued more perfectly, because I was going to say, you can't really take these blowouts for anything more than what they are, but it is a sign of a healthy program to a lot of degrees, right? Like, look at how much Clemson struggled with Troy, right? And I'm not sure. I think Troy probably would be a favorite over Central Michigan, but they're in the same ballpark, right? Look at what happened with Michigan State against Youngstown State, who would get crushed by Central Michigan. You start messing around, you're not playing that well. next thing you know, Nick Marsh now might be missing the game. The aforementioned Nick Marsh might be missing the game on the road at USC, right? So like that's all you can ask for these games is execution, right? Come out and just do what you're supposed to do and put it behind you. And Michigan, it's safe to say, did that and more. So lots to look at from the, X's and O's and inside of it. But as far as big picture, I think we've pretty much covered as far as what Michigan did in decimating the Chippewas. So I pitched this to you, game of overreaction, proper reaction, or underreaction as a way to just kind of hit some of the topics we want to talk about as we go along here. So first and foremost, we've already mentioned it. The offense looked so much better with Bryce Underwood attacking the ground game. As you mentioned, over 100 yards rushing. I don't think either of us are expecting that to be an every week thing because, of course, sacks count against rushing yards. So teams are going to get to the quarterback more. He's probably not going to rush for over 100 yards and get those gaping lanes. But big picture, is the offense fixed now that they've gone all in on Bryce Underwood running?
I'm going to need to see it one more week against a team with a pulse. Again, when you're playing on the road, right, where they struggled at Oklahoma. And now much of that was because in Biff Poggi's words, the interim coach took the air out of the ball, which is something they say they're not going to do anymore. But I'm still going to say that's an overreaction. Just for all those reasons, right? There are going to be more difficult circumstances. There's not going to be an easier defense you're facing this year. And so did it not just trend in the right direction, but take a massive leap in the right direction? It appeared that way. It did. Certainly this is what sometimes this is what gives like the armchair quarterback and the fans at home. And we all think like fan media. Those of us who are not coaches, at times we all think it's like, oh, well, God, they just got to do this. They just got to do that. Sometimes the coaching staff, I feel like, is really going to kick themselves where it's like, Joe Schmo could have told you to start running Bryce Underwood, right? Like that felt like the easiest fix imaginable. And sure enough, they did. So, I asked Jordan Marshall about it, asked Justin Haynes about it, just like are you seeing bigger gaps? Like how helpful is it? And the answer is, of course it's helpful, right? It's just another body to account for. Even if you're not fully accounting for him, like expecting him to run, just the hesitation, just the thought in your mind that he might pull it is enough to make you half a beat slow. And that's enough to open up a lane, to turn a tackle where you're getting the head across into sort of an arm tackle where these running backs can just run through it. So I think it is an overreaction to say Michigan's offense is just completely fixed, but I think there is more than enough reason for optimism.
Yeah, that's tough to argue. And the thing about Underwood's running too is like, man, he is just huge, right? So it's not like you can throw any safety or someone on there in a one-on-one spy type role, right? Like it's got to be a linebacker with some speed and some size who's going to be able to take him down, right? Because of just how big he is. So it just creates so many matchup issues. And we'll see, obviously, running against Central Michigan and doing it against bigger, more physical teams that they'll see in Big Ten play. Like you said, I think we got to see it first, right? Just before we're ready to say that this is going to be a huge ingredient of the attack instead of just something that happens a couple times a game. So we'll see. We like to say that. So I feel like too often sometimes in the podcast, but you don't want to make judgments before it's there for you to make, right? So we're rolling with the overreaction on that. So speaking of the offense, Michigan's running backs continue to pop, particularly Justice Haynes. So we had the question here, are Michigan's running backs better this year than in 2024? Is that a proper reaction, an overreaction, or an underreaction?
This one was tough, especially because I was pretty hard on the running back room the first couple weeks. There weren't a ton of effective runs outside of Haynes' 3 big ones. But I'm going to say this is a proper reaction. So while Kalel Mullings is the Jordan Marshall, or I should say Jordan Marshall is the Kalel Mullings in the term that he's sort of running behind the pads guy, and Justice Haynes is Donovan Edwards in the home run aspect of things, I'm going to actually reverse them because Kalel was the lead back last year. Justice is the lead back this year. I think 1-for-1, Justice is the more explosive back of those two. And we loved us some Kalel Mullings on this podcast. Go back and listen to any episodes last year. We were all singing his praises often. I think we have a little bit on this year's shows. But I just think the ability that, Haynes has been dynamic. He is top 6 in the country in rushing yards, in touchdowns, averaging 7.9 yards a pop. Now, Kalel was around there at this time, but Haynes, I remember one of my concerns, or not concerns, but something to monitor that I said after week 1 was he only forced 1 missed tackle in week 1. He's forced 14 in the past 2 weeks, so he's up to 15 forced missed tackles. I mean, he's not just hitting big holes and running through them. He's making guys miss. And then Jordan Marshall had a much more promising game this past week. I still want to see a little bit more. He got into the end zone twice. Only one of them stood because Andrew Marsh had a holding call up the field that negated his longest run of the day. But it feels like Jordan is starting to get going a little bit here. And then you even saw, I mean, for whatever it's worth, Kudzol and Jasper Parker. I think Parker is going to be that RB3 before too long. He had some burst just on his handful of carries when he was in the game. So I think overall, the strength of the unit is better. And I do think that if you were ranking every running back, I mean, I would, Michigan loves their 1A, 1B backs. I would put Haynes 1A, Kalel 1B, and then I think I would put Marshall 3 over Donovan Edwards. I know that might stir up some controversy or get some reaction, but that's not what I'm going for. I just think Donovan lost a lot of juice the last couple years. Jordan Marshall slowly coming into his own. I think by season's end, he will be a major contributor in this room.
Yeah, and it's a bet on upside, right? I mean, Marshall's still young. Last year was the end of Edwards' career in college, so it's bet on upside. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball, last season, the story with this Michigan team was that defensive line. Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant, and the front seven all season long, even despite some of the struggles, was one of the best units in the country. So I came up with this one. Is Michigan's front seven as good this season as last season? Overreaction, underreaction, proper reaction?
That's an overreaction. That is an overreaction in my estimation to say that, because also, and I know you were just listing a couple of the names. I mean, Josiah Stewart was a day 2 pick a season ago, led the team in sacks, right? And I mean, obviously you're totally right. Mason and KG were the heartbeat and the essence of that front seven. But Josiah was, I would say, a better edge rusher than Derek Moore, than TJ Guy. And I think Michigan is starting to see that, because this past week, Michigan was, I mean, and we've talked about, I remember writing preseason, the most overlooked and underrated room on this team is the linebacker room. And that showed itself through the non-conference portion of the season. Hausman, Barham. I would put Sullivan at 3, even though they say Jimmy Rolder is sort of like their third starter. Cole Sullivan has been fantastic this year. I mean, just truly, truly excellent.
Flying to the ball.
Yeah, I mean, sacks, forced fumbles, making plays on special teams, tackling. I don't know if he's missed a tackle this year. I mean, he's been really that good. And as a result, it would not surprise me in the least if Michigan maybe moved to Sullivan as a starter along with Hausman, and then used Barham, if not exclusively on the edge, more often than not on the edge. I mean, they lined him up on the edge 27 times this past game, the exact same amount of snaps he had in his linebacker spot. And I mean, first play of the game, dude is blowing by the right tackle and sacking Central Michigan's quarterback before he has a chance to look up. I mean, talk about welcome to the big house, right? He had a pair of sacks. He had that massive hit, obviously, that ended up getting him suspended for the Oklahoma game. He was on the edge on that play. He is a game wrecker when he lines up on the line of scrimmage. And I think you just let him sort of pin his ears back and go get the quarterback. And so that's a way to have 3 sort of linebackers, so quote unquote, on the field, with one of them lining up at edge. And so, but even with that, I still am going to take last year's unit. There's no Kenneth Grant on this team. There's no Mason Graham on this team. Barham could end up being a Josiah Stewart level, but you're still down a couple, in a few spots overall. Now you could say the linebackers have improved. Hausman another year. Sullivan, who we've just discussed at length, coming into his own. And the interior of the line has been fine. Trey Williams had a couple batted balls. Damon Payne has popped here and there. Still waiting for Trey Pierce to get going. He had a nice game week 1. Haven't seen as much of him the past 2 weeks in terms of popping on the film. So overall, this was going to be a tough one, right? To compare to that unit last year, which is really what held Michigan in the vast majority of the games when they had a rather anemic offense most of the time. So overreaction that the front seven is as good right now, but they are also trending. And I think just like Michigan sort of found its form defensively as the season went on last year, they're on the same trajectory this year.
Yeah, watching, it just feels like the linebackers as a whole are a level above, or at least playing a level above of what they were last year. Particularly Barham feels like he's been optimized, right? Like, it's just like, oh, that's how that guy's supposed to be used. Just watching him just blow up backfields. And he is so quick when he's on that edge. It's just the ultimate version of, when you see a guy in a different spot and it's like, oh, okay, look how quick he is right there versus maybe some of the other roles where he's been used. So no, that's a good prediction about putting Sullivan in the full-time linebacker role and Barham being used off the edge. I think that's a very valuable option that Michigan will probably at least look at throughout the season, especially if the more traditional defensive ends aren't bringing as much pressure as they saw last year with Stewart. So definitely, I for the record, I do agree it was an overreaction. I was just trying to stir up some conversation. I think we got the end result there. So, all right, last but not least, let's go big picture. Michigan will be fine without Sharon on the road. Underreaction, overreaction, proper reaction.
I'm going back quickly, super quickly. Barham, 2 sacks. Sullivan, 2 sacks. Troy Bowles, 1 sack. Jair Hill, 1 sack. There is only 1 sack that has come from this defensive line, and that was Dom Nichols in game 1, who was a second stringer. So that just sort of shows it. But to your most recent question, that is an underreaction. Michigan will not only be fine without Sharon Moore, they will be more than fine without Sharon Moore. I'm not saying that long term, right? Like, it would be a loss in terms of what he means to this team, to these players if he was out a long time. But to be out this 1 week, I mean, we heard Biff Poggi talking about the emotional dinner with the team and just, sounded like there were tears from players, from coaches. Now, they did acknowledge, like, this was a self-imposed suspension, right? Like, it's not like the NCAA handed this down or the Big Ten handed this down. Like, the commissioner, like, Michigan did this and not just did the crime, quote unquote, so to speak, but Michigan imposed the punishment. So it is a little bit hard to play, for lack of a better word, aggrieved, but that's never stopped this locker room before, right? Like Michigan versus everybody. They used that as a rallying point in 2023 to prove everybody wrong in the height of the sign stealing scandal all the way to a national championship. Like, oh, you think that's why we won? We'll show you why we win. It's because we're the best team. And this year, it's sort of like, oh, they're taking our coach from us again. Like, we got to play for him. But Poggi talked about last week, his 120 players wrote Sharon Moore a love letter with their actions, which I thought was actually a really great line, and just by how they played. And Sharon Moore is more the motivational guy, right? Like, I don't know, like, he's still proven it to me as an X's and O's guy, as a time management guy. I don't think he's been great in that aspect in game. I think that's fair to say. But I mean, as their motivational guy, he's been fantastic in spots against Ohio State, spots against Alabama. You could argue he is providing the greatest motivation to his team by not being there, right? I mean, they are super fired up in that regard. And so if Michigan does not come out on the right side of this game, I don't think it's because Sharon Moore wasn't there. I mean, he was playing. I mean, Michigan knew what they were going to do to Central Michigan last week, right? They were spending more time last week game planning for Nebraska than they ever do a week ahead. And you could probably argue more time on Nebraska last week than Central last week. And he laid out the whole practice plan, everything that he wanted the team focusing on this week. So he's not there presently, but he is there in spirit, as always, as they say. And so I think it is an underreaction to say they will be fine. They will be more than fine.
All right. Well, we'll take that into the break and we'll continue our Nebraska discussion on the other side. So stick with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. Stop me if you've heard this before, but Michigan is heading on the road to face a former Big 12 team in another huge game for their season. A couple weeks ago, it was the Oklahoma Sooners, who now are in the SEC, and Nebraska, who has, of course, been in the Big 10 for years now. Either way, it does have a big game feel, and it has a similar feel to me, at least, as far as the kind of matchup it is. Nebraska is not exactly faced the toughest schedule so far. They have their best win is against Cincinnati in week 1 in that game that was played at the Chiefs Stadium. But either way, they're number 9 in scoring offense and number 7 in scoring defense. So they've been balling out on the field. And Tony, are there any lessons that Michigan can take from that Oklahoma game, particularly in the quarterback department, facing John Mateer and now getting Dylan Raiola?
RIP Big 12. That just got me sad about like our childhood and those great Big 12 teams. I mean, like,
oh man, I used to love the Big 12.
Texas, right? Like all their name brands gone. Even, and not that this was a great one, but Colorado, right? Now in the Pac-12. I mean, just completely disbanded.
Well, and no, they're still in the Colorado's back in the Big 12 now.
Yeah, they're back, but they left.
They left and then they came back.
I just said the Pac-10 as if that's still a thing. Yeah, they're back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the thing too is it's like a death of conference identities, right? Remember Big 12 was like air raid, offense. You knew exactly what you were tuning in for. Now you watch USC versus Michigan State this weekend, and that's supposedly a Big 10 matchup. It's just like, it makes you sad when you think about it because the conferences were so beautifully messy and somehow worked perfectly. And now we're in this world where, Oklahoma's in the SEC and Nebraska's in the Big 10 and on and on and on.
Well, that's what happens when you go for the money instead of just for geography and what makes sense, right? But yeah, I mean, those Mahomes and Baker Mayfield, like that shootout where there was like 1,100 yards of offense. I don't know if you can get the actual numbers on that game while we're doing this, but that was crazy. Anyways, so the question was, can that Oklahoma game prepare Michigan for this week? Yes and no, right? Big time stadium, big environment, a lot on the line, away from home. All that's the same. But I mean, as I've been asking players and coaches about like what they could learn from John Mateer against to take into Dylan Raiola, I mean, they've all made the wonderful point. Like, yeah, we got to face another talented quarterback, but stylistically, I mean, these two are not the same, right? Like Dylan Raiola this year has run 9 times for 19 yards. He's not exactly a scrambler, whereas John Mateer ran 19 times for 76, 78 yards and a couple touchdowns against Michigan just in the one game. Many of those runs were designed, right? Raiola, there are no designed runs for Dylan Raiola. Now, that said, he's completing 77% of his passes, 76.6, for 829 yards in 3 games, 8 touchdowns, no picks. So he does appear to have taken that step. He got his feet wet as a freshman last year, took his lumps as a true freshman, and now he is really balling for the Cornhuskers. And so there are some things that you can learn, but Dylan Raiola is his own animal. I would say he's probably easier to defend overall, just because there is one thing he does well and another that he does not do as much. And I mean, that's no slight to him. John Mateer is the Heisman favorite right now, right? Like, to say he's not at that level is not saying he's not a great quarterback. And also, I still got to see it from Raiola that proves that he can push the ball downfield against solid teams, right? So like last year against FBS teams, he never averaged 8 yards a pass against any Division I team, much less a Michigan, right? And in the past 3 years, now Raiola's only been there last year and this year, but going back to the year before, only twice has Nebraska as a team averaged 11 yards a pass, which I know that's a bigger number, but those are both against Purdue. And so, I mean, and that was coming into this year. Dylan Raiola averaged 12 yards and 12.4 and 12.5 yards each of the last 2 weeks against their lesser foes. So I'm really fascinated to see if he is still able to push the ball. We know Wink Martindale can put you in a blender like real quick and give you one picture and then change it post snap. That's something he's known for. And so it's just going to be a really interesting matchup to watch. So I don't know how much Mateer readies them for Raiola. If anything, it's that, wow, I mean, we've already faced the most difficult quarterback on the schedule, right? We know what that's like. Now we can face a little bit of a watered down version.
Yeah, and Nebraska has got a pretty powerful rushing attack too. Emmett Johnson, 326 yards through 3 games. That's 7th in the nation. Justice Haynes is 5th. So they've got a powerful rushing attack too that Michigan's going to have to prepare for. If you were giving me your bullet points like you do and know the foe and your scouting reports, what are the things that Michigan football is going to have to focus on most offensively and defensively to keep this game, close late where they can pull away or blow them out? I mean, I don't really know how you see this game going. I think the natural styles of these two teams being both kind of ground and pound defense first, right? Like you think it's going to be a close game at the very least, right?
I do expect this to be close, and we'll save the actual prediction for the next segment when we get into the picks. But yeah, no, I do see it being close. I think job one, as any coach, any team is going to say, we got to stop the run, right? And that's cliche. It's cliche for a reason. You mentioned Emmett Johnson. Every game this year, he's either had 100 rushing yards or multiple touchdowns. In one game, it was both. So he's producing. There's no doubt about that. But what I'm looking at is Michigan's offense against Nebraska's defense. I mean, there's been a talking point this week, and I mean, it's a factual statistic, so you're going to talk about it. Nebraska is number 1 in the nation in pass defense, giving up 66 yards a game, right? I remember the last time, and I should say only time, but we'll say last time because it sounds cooler. The last time I was in Lincoln, it was 2023. It was the same week. I believe it was the Big Ten opener. Michigan was going in, or it was at least Michigan's first road game of that year. Michigan was going in to face a Cornhusker team that was number one in run defense in 2023. They were giving up a similar numbers, like somewhere around 65 yards a game. Yeah, Michigan ran for 249. And just blew the doors off Nebraska that day. So a lot of these numbers are padded when you are playing some of these teams like Akron or like Houston Christian. I didn't know that was a real team, I'll be honest. So like they are going to be like, the numbers are going to look inflated. So where is the truth, right? Like, is Bryce going to just go for another 350 yards of total offense? If he does, I can tell you who's going to win that game. Or is it going to fall somewhere in the middle? Like I'm expecting, like a good game from Bryce, maybe not a blow him out of the water game, but certainly not a dud like Oklahoma. It's just whoever wins that battle is going to have a lot to say here. And then one more note about Nebraska's defense that is so like, that's really stopping this pass attack, right? They only have 5 sacks through 3 games against some opponents that are not great, to say the least. Houston Christian, they passed 18 times for 67 yards last week, right? So, they're just getting the ball out so quickly. It's a lot of swing passes, a lot of underneath. They're not pushing the ball down the field. So kind of like Michigan against New Mexico, there's just not time to get home. That is certainly something I'm keeping my eye on, because if you can't create a pass rush on Bryce, number one, he's going to pick you apart. But number two, by the time you do get home, he will be more than comfortable to just extend the play. And as we saw this last week, use his legs to just knife you up.
All right, we'll get to our specific picks on the other side here. We want to save that. We'll have a little bit more Nebraska and then a big picture look at another loaded week of college football and a funny game time that we'll have to discuss too, of course, for the team up the road in Michigan here. So all that and more on the other side. We'll talk to you guys in just a second. Welcome back, everyone, and we'll just jump right into the Michigan and Nebraska game, where the Wolverines, as of Wednesday morning, time of recording here, are a 2.5-point favorite on the road at Nebraska. Tony, how do you see this game going? We already said we think it's going to be close, but do you give the Wolverines the edge in the picking the spread department?
I did an early pick on Freep.com to begin this week, and I had Dominic Raiola kicking a game-winning field goal as time expired for Michigan to win 24-23. So that would not be a cover. But the longer I think about this, I think the game's going to be tied when Dominic Raiola hits that game-winning field goal. I don't think that Michigan will be trailing in those final moments. Could they be? Of course. But I think we just broke down sort of what we're watching in this game. How much does Michigan use Underwood's legs again, right? Is Michigan able to establish a ground game which they were not able to do against Oklahoma? This is the best defense they've seen since then. How much is Jayshon Barham used on the edge to help get home, to help supplement that pass rush that really has not gotten home outside of blitzes from the linebackers? So there's a lot going on here. A sneaky part is Michigan's got to be better in special teams. Last week, they didn't punt, so that was good, but that's really more of an offensive statistic than a special team statistic. But 3 punt returns for 2 yards from Samaj. I wonder if I think Samaj is capable, but he just hasn't done it this year. I wonder if they go away from him. You could see a Joe Taylor in this game just to be sure there's no fumbles. he's their trusty guy, but it's just to touch on all the factors. Every single aspect of this game is going to be critical if Michigan's going to get a big road win, a big Big Ten win to open the league slate. I got Michigan 20. I got them by 3. I got to see. I was going to say 23-20. I don't know if I'm on the over yet, which would maybe be more like a 26-23 situation, but I'll say Michigan by 3. They just cover.
When I look at these two teams, I kind of feel like it's looking at two teams looking in the mirror in a lot of ways. They both teams like to run the ball, play good defense, and have younger QBs who still have to prove it in big games here in Raiola and Underwood. So with that being said, I think that, if you imagine Nebraska going on the road and playing Oklahoma in week 2 and going against John Mateer, I feel like it would have been a pretty similar result, right? So I'm going to take the points for the home dog in this one and roll with Nebraska. It's not like I don't think Michigan's capable. I already said I think it's going to be a really close game, but a really close game, a slightly more experienced quarterback, and a team who really needs a statement win in Nebraska. I'm going to give the slight edge to the Cornhuskers to I think I'm going to pick them outright, but I think I'll definitely take the points because I just think these two teams are pretty close. And when it comes down to it, if you're getting the points at home, you just got to take that. So that's my pick for the Wolverines and Nebraska. Moving on now to the fun part where we don't have to worry about Michigan and we can just talk about college football. Auburn, 6.5 point underdog at Oklahoma, who Michigan fans, of course, know quite a bit about with the Sooners. Tony, what is your pick?
Yeah, well, very quickly, I wanted to reset. We got to start resetting the picks off the top of the segment.
The way I go right into it. Yeah, I go right into it every time I ask you.
I think it's because I beat you every week. I think that's why you don't really want to get into it.
Certainly might be it, but I literally said to myself, all right, bring up the picks and the standings, even though I don't want to necessarily. But I always start asking you about the game, and then you give me your pick, and then I go to my pick, and next thing you know, we're on game 2. But yes. For the season, Tony is 9-6, an pretty impressive record through 15 games against the spread. I am working my way back after a disastrous week 1. I'm 6-8 now. So with a good week here, I can get back above 500, which is always the goal. So yes, thank you, Tony, for the reminder as always.
Yes, no, but we both had winning weeks last week was really what I wanted to point out. So it feels like we're starting to find our groove here a little bit. So trying to keep that going. I'm sure I just put the kibosh on it and totally jinxed it. Anyways, Oklahoma, Auburn. I mean, I've seen what Oklahoma looks like at Oklahoma, and that is a pretty ferocious team. So I'm going to ride with the Sooners. Auburn quarterback Jackson Arnold is making his return to Norman. He was quarterback there the past 2 seasons before he transferred to the Tigers this fall. And he is an Oklahoma quarterback in the mold, right? Like a Kyler Murray, like a Baker Mayfield, like a Jalen Hurts, like a John Mateer. Like this guy can run as well. He's got 4 touchdowns this year, almost 200 yards on the ground through 3 games, averaging 5.5 yards a carry. But I think Oklahoma's pretty used to defending quarterbacks like that in practice. And so I think that could be neutralized. And Oklahoma, I mean, it's great to be 3-0, but they don't want to start. Nobody wants to start 0-1 in the SEC, but this is a team with designs on making the postseason. Still a big season for Brent Venables. They can't only hang their hat on that Michigan win. So I think 6.5. It's a little higher than I want, but just going to kind of plug my nose and trust Oklahoma to cover this thing late. So I will go with the Sooners.
Oklahoma is better than Auburn from what I've seen. Let's just start there. I think Oklahoma's better, so I'm picking the Sooners. But also going big picture, this is one that Oklahoma just has to have. We've talked about their schedule this year in the SEC. Obviously, they got through the Michigan game a couple weeks ago. They've got ranked Auburn, but then they have a couple weeks break where they had the bye and they play Kent State. But then they go at Texas, at South Carolina, home versus Ole Miss, who's number 13, on the road against number 15, Tennessee, who almost just beat Georgia. Looks pretty darn good. At Alabama, Missouri at home, and LSU at home. Unbelievably tough schedule. So this is one they have.
That's no fun.
They have to get this one, right? So I'm gonna take the Sooners and eat the 6.5 points, like you said. Florida at Miami is our third game. I feel like we've had Florida in the picks almost every week at this point, or at least discussed them every week at this point. DJ Lagway, 5 interceptions last week. It was ugly. And even with that said, they still hung right there with LSU. So 7.5 point underdogs against rival Miami on the road. Tony, what is your pick, sir?
Yeah, well, I mean, part of you wants to just go transitive property, right? I mean, Miami hammered USF. USF beat Florida. A, B, C, right? Miami over Florida. I don't think it's going to be quite that easy. Like it's not going to just be some blowout, but Miami looks really good this season. Like really, really good. I will admit I was part of the Carson Beck slander train. So that's on me. I think there were a lot of us on that train. And so it happens, but I mean, it's not just Carson Beck who's doing this. Malachi Tony looks like an all league receiver. CJ Daniels has been electric at times as well. Mark Fletcher, their running back, he's dynamic. But I mean, Reuben Bain, the defensive lineman, this guy's got first round pick written all over him. High end first round pick for my money. And you mentioned it, Lagway with 5 picks last week. Something stinks in Gainesville, and it's not just the water. I mean, something is going on there. Their coach on the hot seat. I don't know if they can rally for him a second year in a row. And so I think this game is in the Orange Bowl as well. So another home game for Miami. I'm taking the Hurricanes, and it pains me to back Mario Cristobal in an important spot, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Well, I think you just partially made the case for me here. I'm going with Florida because this just feels like one of those games where everyone's going to be on the Miami side. It feels like easy. If you look back at the LSU game last week, you know what? Florida had 23 first downs to just 10 from LSU. Florida was moving the ball on a really good LSU defense. So I think that if he has 2 turnovers, right, then they're probably in that game. So I think I think Miami and LSU are similar caliber opponents. Obviously, it's not an easy spot here for Florida they did themselves no favor scheduling that game right after LSU. But what can you say? The SEC is brutal. And so any out of conference game takes on extra importance. But I think this is one game where we talk about spots a lot, right? Where it's like they need this one, and LSU or Florida's going to be coming out with some extra juice against a rival in a game where you're basically, if they come out and get smoked, I would not be surprised if Billy Napier is fired after this game, right? This is the kind of game that really sits in the craw of Florida fans' heads, right? Where it's like Miami, we're supposed to be better than Miami, right? So if they come out and just get embarrassed, it's Napier's job on the line. So I think this is going to be a team that's going to be fired up and it's going to shock some people and covering that 7.5 point spread.
Quickly, I think I actually really like your cap and I totally see it. What if LSU's just not that good at 3-0? You know what I mean? They needed all those stops to beat a Florida team that's looking meh. That Clemson win, it was on the road and they had vibes at the time. How's Clemson looked, right? They had to come back against Troy. They lost against Georgia Tech. And so I just wonder if we're overinflating LSU and LSU still beat them by 10.
Maybe. I just don't know because it's like you start playing that game and you can pick apart anybody, right? Miami is undefeated. They're number 4 in the nation. Well, they beat Notre Dame. Well, Notre Dame lost to Texas A&M. And then you just start playing transitive property. You can take anybody down by doing that game, right? Like you said, LSU, there's certainly evidence you could look at now, especially with this Clemson team falling apart, that maybe they're not as good as we thought they were. But beating Clemson at Clemson and beating Florida are 2 of the best wins, probably the 2 best 1-2 punch wins in the country right now, right? It'd be hard to put together 2 better wins than that. So how are we not, we have to take what we have, right, for sample size. So it's a guessing game, and that's why the casinos are extra large out in Las Vegas, right?
Exactly.
All right, let's do a Big Ten matchup here. We'll finish with 2 Big Ten matchups, actually. Illinois at Indiana. The Hoosiers, 5.5 point favorites over the Fighting Illini. Both these 2 teams, basketball schools, quite frankly, right? Historically, now the last few years are starting to look like football programs, and this one is a big spot for both teams.
Yeah, these are 2 of my 4 favorite road venues in the Big Ten in hoops, and I would not rank either of them in the top 10 in football of the ones I've been to. But here we are. Both these teams are ranked, and they are vibing going into this game. You know who I'm going with. I'm rolling with the Fighting Illini. I feel like for some reason people don't like Luke Altmaier. And so often it's easy to bag on quarterbacks. But in a year where quarterback play has been down, Altmaier has been up. They got a 2-headed monster running back. Brett Bielema just knows how to win. He's unless you're in the SEC, apparently. And so, I like Illinois. I thought this game should have been more like 3 points. The fact that it's 5.5 kind of worries me. Maybe I'm walking right into it, but give me Illinois.
What has Indiana shown us in 2 years under Curt Cignetti? It's that if they have similar talent level or maybe slightly better, that they know how to put the pedal to the metal and play way ahead of these teams as far as, just blowing them out. Like they scored 70 something points. They rack up the points. And I think physically Illinois and Indiana look like similar teams as far as the trenches and as far as the type of profile of player they're able to recruit. And last year, Indiana was 9-2 as a favorite under Cignetti. So the one game they obviously weren't, they got crushed by Ohio State. Right. So that's the question about this Indiana program. We've seen that they can beat these type of teams and quite frankly handle a lot of them. So I'm going to roll with the Hoosiers -5.5 and see if Cignetti can prove that this is not a fluke and that he's really building something down there. And, say what you want about the Big Ten. If you're able to just beat the teams who are similar or better than you, that's what Mark D'Antonio did for all those years up in Michigan State, right? Like even you look at Michigan's 2023 national championship team, like they went weeks before they played anyone who really could even remotely challenge them. So like if you're able to just, especially in this modern day 12-team playoff land, like if you're able to just crush the teams who are equal talent level to you and then, maybe take a flyer against Penn State or Ohio State or Michigan, like you're going to look at a lot of college football playoff situations if you can do that. So we'll see. We'll learn a lot about this Indiana program in this week against Illinois. All right. wrapping it up, last but not least, I mentioned a ridiculously, stupidly late game. Michigan State at USC. The Spartans are an 18.5-point underdog in a game that will kick off at 11 p.m. Probably won't get done until close to 3 a.m. in Michigan. Just silly, especially when you have Utah kicking off against Texas Tech at 12 p.m. Eastern time. I think it's 10 a.m. Mountain time, right? So just college football at its absolute worst, in my opinion. It's ridiculous. And quite frankly, I'll just say it before, I hate the spot for Michigan State. It's a terrible spot for them traveling and playing this ridiculously late time. But 18.5 points, how much would it have to be, Tony, to get you to pick against USC in this one?
It would have to start with a 2.
Yeah.
I think I would need I need the full 3 touchdowns. And I don't know if you guys can tell who the editor is who has to worry about these other games that aren't Michigan, because my day will be well done by this time. So thoughts and prayers for Andrew and the whole desk, whoever else on the desk has to stay up for this one, and our colleague Chris Solari, who will be out there. But no, I mean, I'm going with USC. I thought this game, here, let's take a look back last year at some of Michigan State's big losses. 38-7 to Ohio State, 47-10 to Indiana, 38-16 to Illinois, 41-14 to Rutgers at home. It feels like when Michigan State loses, it's just been an early trend under Jonathan Smith. When they lose under him, they lose big. The exceptions were actually the Michigan game last year. That was a touchdown. That was just a 1 touchdown loss. And Boston College was like a last minute sort of deal as well. But I mean, so many big losses last year. And I think I'm forgetting another loss. They had a lot of losses last year. Okay, there you go. And that was 3 touchdowns or something. So yeah, and it was not as close as the final score. So, and it's always tough. I am always hesitant to take even the best of teams traveling west. I don't know. I mean, I'll learn more about USC and learn more about Michigan this week for when they play a few weeks down the line. I think it's like October 12th, something like that, whatever it is, mid-October. But here's another chance to say the name that I messed up earlier. Nick Marsh, you mentioned it. I mean, one of the 2 best receivers in the Big Ten. I mean, like a really dynamic player. He is out. I think I saw their running back, Frazier, got banged up. I mean, if you're without your lead back and your lead wide receiver, you're playing at 11 p.m. body clock, you're going to the West Coast, and you are the less talented team across the board in a prove-it year for Lincoln Riley. I think the Trojans are going to run this one up. So I think it's USC. Michigan State's got a dynamic offense, but they are a sieve on defense. I mean, it could be 49-28, 49-27, something like that.
I mean, maybe I was being naive, but a couple weeks ago, I thought maybe that Michigan State, first of all, USC, I hadn't seen a lot from USC yet. USC, as Tony has banged the drum over many times the last few years, a bit fraudulent, quite consistently last few years. So I thought maybe, this would be a kind of good spot for Michigan State to come in and catch him off guard, right? Well, now USC looks good. Michigan State, it might be playing without Nick Marsh, who in my opinion is probably the second best receiver in the Big Ten behind only Jeremiah Smith. I mean, some of these plays, like his stats aren't necessarily popping off, especially with this last game against Youngstown where he missed the whole second half and he got hurt in the second quarter. Some of these runs after the catch and some of these catches, it's just like, this dude is a freak of nature. Like it's one of those things where even when he gets pushed out of bounds, he's still staying on his feet almost to like make a point. I wouldn't call it a hospital ball, but there was a hit from behind where he caught it. And as he was catching it, he got hit from behind. Like cleanest tackle. You'd think his face mask would go flying into the turf. Instead, he somehow stays on his feet and doesn't go down right away. It's just like, he is looking so strong this year. Well, now he might not be playing because they messed around with Youngstown State, right? And you pick up an injury to Frazier, who was playing late in the fourth quarter, and Marsh, who got banged up because they were force feed. It's just like, then you mix in the 11 o'clock start. It's just, there's literally nothing that would make you want to pick Michigan State, even though I don't necessarily think that they're a 3 touchdown team worse than USC at their best day. I don't, but every single thing about this spot suggests that you want to pick the Trojans. So I also will be picking the Trojans.
The only hope is USC actually did not look good last week in West Lafayette. I mean, they were up 2 touchdowns on a bad Purdue team mid-fourth quarter, and Purdue had a touchdown. It was called back, and then on the next play, like they were in the USC red zone. And on the next play, they throw like a 50-yard pick with 5 minutes left. But that could have been a one-score game against Purdue with 5 minutes left. But again, I think that more shows the travel aspect. I mean, it is just difficult to go 1,500, 2,000 miles and then play a football game. It really is.
Yeah, Chris Laurie touched on this, a piece he wrote this week, that Michigan State's not even allowed to practice after 10 p.m. because of NCAA rules. And they basically can't fly out there till, I think, Thursday late. So who knows what time they'll get there. You basically have it's not like it's impossible. If they were playing this game at 3:30 or, even 8 o'clock, you'd like it better. But 11 o'clock body clock, you can just see it on TV now, just like getting ugly, can't you?
I feel like you got to watch out for injuries. I mean, like cramping, water situation, all these things. These teams are so regimented, and that's not in anybody's regiment. So tough spot.
And Michigan State's a morning practice team now under Jonathan Smith. So,
but then again, Oregon just had to play 9 a.m. body clock, right? When they played in Big Noon at Northwestern last week. And that was like,
it's not an excuse, right?
That was an 11 local kickoff. Yeah, no, nobody's going to you're making millions and millions of dollars. Even the players are getting paid now. So figure it out. Figure it out.
No, it's not an excuse. It's just, we're talking picks, right? Like we're just talking picks because it's not an excuse, especially for everyone in this conference is going to have to make some type of trip that is probably ridiculous on its surface for college football. So with all that said, it's looking like a bad spot for the Spartans. We will see. Maybe Michigan State pulls off the upset, creates a little buzz for the Michigan State game later in the year. Either way, USC, Michigan, either way, Michigan plays both these teams, right? So either way, it should prop up a matchup against the Wolverines here in the near future. Tony, when are you heading out to Nebraska here?
Friday evening. It's actually one of my later flights for a game, but I knew it was a 3:30 game, so didn't feel the need to get in too early. So Friday night, actually going into Omaha, it's a little more affordable, and then it's like a 1-hour drive to Lincoln. I remember last time it was super easy. So get in the car, heading over, kind of the classic deal. I'm excited. Last time I was a little underwhelmed by Lincoln. I think there should be more. I think there should be more juice this time.
Wasn't the last game at noon? I think the last game was at noon, right? Which would be 11 a.m. CT, right?
I wish I could remember. It's something I should remember.
It was because I had to go to a wedding that day and it was on before we even left. So I'm pretty sure it was on at noon that day. And so maybe with the 3:30 kickoff, a little more time for the Cornhusker fans to set up. And hopefully none of them listen to the podcast because they would have heard your many references to their underwhelming tailgating scenes.
I know. Well, it was just that day. It was because a lot of it is how hyped up it was. Yeah, that game was 45-7. And no, so I'm seeing a story from 8:13 p.m. So I'm guessing that would have been a 3:30.
Totally misremembered that then.
Yeah, 3:30. It was 3:30 that day. I thought so. You were giving them the benefit of the doubt.
I did look this up. There was almost 1,300 yards of offense in that Oklahoma versus Texas Tech game with Baker Mayfield and Patrick Mahomes. And Mahomes had 800 yards of offense himself because he was the team leading rusher. And he had 730 yards passing and 80-something yards rushing to hit 800 yards total offense. And that Joe Mixon had 240 yards rushing in a game. You would think that there would be no rushing. Nope. Craziest game of all time. So I don't think we'll be seeing that type of game on Saturday in Lincoln, but we shall see. So, well, thank you for sticking with us this long. If you made it this long, thank you as always to our editor-in-chief, Nicole Avery Nichols, our sports editor, Bill Bradley, the editor of this podcast, Robin Chan, and thanks to Tony for hanging out with me here for an hour and looking forward to another huge college football weekend. So with that being said, we'll talk to you guys soon. Looking like we're doing Wednesday recordings. It seems to be the routine, but just stick with us. Check your podcast platforms and we'll talk to you guys next week.